Over 300,000 people use America's J-1 exchange visitor visa every single year, yet most international candidates either don't know it exists or confuse it with employer-sponsored work visas that are far harder to get. And in 2026, a genuinely important rule catches people off guard after they've already accepted a program. Depending on your specific category, you might be legally required to leave the US for 2 full years before you can return on almost any other visa type. My name is Vincent, and in this video, I'm breaking down exactly how the J-1 visa works in 2026, the program categories, real costs, the 2-year rule everyone needs to understand before applying, and what's genuinely changing this year. Let's get into it. The J-1 exchange visitor visa is a non-immigrant category created under the Mutual Educational and Cultural Act of 1961, administered by the State Department's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. The core idea behind it is genuinely different from most U.S. visas. It's built around cultural exchange and structured learning, not filling a labor gap. This is why it covers such a wide range of people: students, teachers, research scholars, interns, trainees, au pairs, camp counselors, and physicians in structured medical training, all under one broad umbrella. The defining feature of the entire category is sponsorship. Every single J-1 participant needs a Department of State designated sponsoring organization. No exceptions, no independent applications. That sponsor screens applicants, matches them with host companies, universities, or families, and issues the document that makes everything else possible: Form DS-2019, your certificate of eligibility for exchange visitor status. Understanding which category you fall under matters enormously because duration, work rules, and post-program obligations vary significantly between them. College and university students fall under the standard student category, generally allowing up to 18 months depending on the program. Interns and trainees participate in structured professional development placements tied to their field of study or career. Intract's Global Internships, one of the largest designated sponsors, places exchange visitors at companies including Google, Adobe, and Ripple across more than 50 professional fields, which gives you a sense of how mainstream this pathway has become in the tech and business world specifically. Research scholars and professors typically get longer program durations for academic and research collaboration. Physicians represent one of the longest categories. Foreign medical graduates pursuing residency or fellowship training at accredited U.S. medical programs can stay up to 7 years, which is how the majority of foreign-trained doctors complete their U.S. medical training. And there's a broad specialist category for experts in specialized fields coming for observation, consultation, or demonstration work, typically capped at 1 year. Beyond these, the J-1 also covers the well-known summer work travel program for university students during school breaks, and the au pair category for young people providing childcare while living with a host family. This is genuinely the single most important thing to understand before you commit to a J-1 program, and it trips up more people than any other rule in this category. Under Section 212E of the Immigration and Nationality Act, certain J-1 participants become subject to a 2-year home country physical presence requirement once their program ends, meaning you're required to return to your home country and physically remain there for a cumulative 2 years before you can apply for most other U.S. visa categories or for permanent residency. Whether this applies to you depends on 3 separate triggers, and any one of them is enough. Your program was funded, even partially, by your home government or the U.S. government, your field of study or specialty appears on your home country's official skills list, identifying it as an area of particular development need, or you're specifically here for graduate medical training. If none of these 3 apply to your specific program, you're generally not subject to this requirement at all. But if even one does, it applies regardless of what you'd personally prefer. Here's the practical reality. This rule can genuinely upend career plans for people who complete a J-1 program and then want to transition directly into U.S. employment through an H-1B or a green card process. Waivers do exist based on exceptional hardship to a U.S. citizen spouse or child, a well-founded fear of persecution if you return home, a request from an interested U.S. government agency, or a no objection statement from your home government. But waiver applications are genuinely complex, and outcomes are far from guaranteed. If your career plan depends on staying in the U.S. after your program, check whether this rule applies to you before you even accept your sponsor placement, not after. Let's get into real numbers because J-1 costs come in layers that people frequently miscalculate. The mandatory government fees break into two pieces depending on how you're applying. If you're applying from outside the US through a consulate, you'll pay the SEVIS I-901 fee, which sits at $220 for most J-1 categories, genuinely lower than the F-1 student visa's $350, reflecting the more temporary program-focused nature of exchange visits. Plus, the DS-160 visa application fee of $185, bringing your consular total to $405 in pure government charges. If you're already in the US changing status from something like F1 to J1 domestically, you'd instead file Form I-539 at $370 alongside the SEVIS fee for a combined $590. Here's the update genuinely worth flagging for 2026. A new visa integrity fee of $250 created under 2025 budget legislation is set to apply to most non-immigrant visa categories including the J-1, collected at the point your visa is actually issued. As of mid-2026, the State Department had not yet begun collecting this fee in practice, so the honest advice here is to check the current status directly before you finalize your budget since implementation timing has been genuinely unclear. Beyond government fees, your sponsor charges his or her own separate program fee, which varies significantly depending on the organization and program length. Some sponsors bundle health insurance into this fee, others charge it separately, so ask explicitly rather than assuming. And worth knowing specifically, 38 countries impose their own visa issuance reciprocity fees on J-1 applicants, ranging anywhere from $20 for some nationalities up to $265 for others, collected at your interview after approval. And this fee applies again each time you're issued a new visa stamp, which matters if you ever switch sponsors mid-program. Everything starts with acceptance into a program run by a State Department designated sponsor. This isn't something you can pursue independently. Your sponsor screens your application, matches you with a placement, and issues your DS 2019, showing your program category, start and end dates, and sponsor information. For internship and training placements specifically, you'll also need Form DS-7002, your training or internship placement plan, outlining your specific goals and activities. Once you have your DS 2019 in hand, you pay the SEVIS fee at fmjfee.com. This needs to happen at least 3 business days before your consular interview, and you'll need to print your payment confirmation to bring with you. Next, you complete the DS-160 online application, upload your photo, and print the confirmation page with its barcode. Then, you pay the visa application fee and schedule your interview at your nearest U.S. embassy or consulate. At the interview itself, bring your DS 2019, your DS 160 confirmation, your passport, photo, SEVIS fee receipt, and proof of both funding and ties to your home country. Consular officers are specifically assessing whether you intend to return home after your program, so documentation showing family, property, or employment ties back home genuinely strengthens your case. Be aware that your online presence, including social media, may be reviewed as part of this process under current policy, and some applications may go through additional Section 221G administrative processing before a final decision. Interview wait times vary considerably by consulate location in 2026, so the consistent advice from immigration specialists is to apply as early as your program timeline allows in 2026. Your spouse and unmarried children under 21 can accompany you on J-2 dependent visas for the same period as your program. They can study freely without restrictions, and they can apply separately to USCIS for work authorization using Form I-765 if they want to work in the US during your program. This isn't automatic, but it is genuinely available, which is more generous than several other visa categories offer accompanying family members. Worth noting, your dependent status, including whether the 2-year home residency requirement applies to them, mirrors your own. Employment rules for J-1 holders themselves depend entirely on your specific program category. Some categories allow limited, clearly authorized work tied directly to your program objectives, while others don't permit outside employment at all. The core principle across every category: any employment has to serve your program's stated purpose, not function as general work authorization, and unauthorized employment is one of the most common causes of status violations and program termination. Health insurance compliance is genuinely strict and non-negotiable. Every J-1 participant must maintain coverage meeting the minimum standards set in 22 CFR 62.14, with specific minimum coverage amounts and restrictions on what conditions can be excluded. Your sponsor can point you toward approved insurance options, but the responsibility for maintaining continuous, compliant coverage throughout your program sits with you. It's worth being honest about the broader direction of U.S. exchange visitor policy heading through 2026, because it affects planning even if the core J-1 structure itself hasn't fundamentally changed. Current trends point to increased scrutiny and verification rather than expanded access. This includes wider social media vetting during visa processing, tightened rules around related categories like OPT and CPT for students, and proposed legislation aimed at increasing SEVIS reporting requirements for sponsoring institutions. None of this changes who's eligible for a J-1, but it does mean processing can involve more steps and more careful documentation review than it might have a few years ago. And building extra time into your planning is genuinely sensible given this environment.
So here's the practical bottom line. The J-1 is genuinely one of the most accessible and widely used pathways into the U.S. for students, trainees, and professionals, precisely because it doesn't require an employer willing to sponsor you the way something like an H-1B does. But go in with clear eyes about the 2-year home residency rule if it applies to your category. Budget for the layered fee structure honestly, and build extra time into your application given the current environment of heightened scrutiny. If this was useful, subscribe for more U.S. visa breakdowns like this one, and let me know in the comments which visa category or country you want me to cover next.